I think we all need to be very concerned about where things are headed with the Iran situation. And we're going to get into in this video is how this extended ceasefire and this drive for a deal by the Trump administration is throwing a lifeline to the Iranian regime and could be signaling that this entire operation could, in the end, be a great failure. And I'm serious about this. So let's start with this report from the Wall Street Journal that came out just yesterday. What we know about the memo the U.S. and Iran are discussing. The U.S. and Iran are working with mediators to formulate a one-page, 14-point memorandum of understanding that would set the parameters for a month of talks to end the war, people familiar with the matter said. Here's what to know about the proposal so far. Talks could resume as early as next week in Islamabad, Pakistan. Iran has for the first time expressed openness to discussing its nuclear program. The working document calls for Iran to ease its chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. would wind back its blockade of Iranian ports during 30 days of talks. Both sides are also discussing the possible removal of some of Iran's highly enriched uranium stockpiles abroad. Iran remains opposed to transferring nuclear material to the U.S. Details of the length of any suspension of Iran's enrichment or the possible removal of enriched uranium from the country remain unresolved. Iran's assertion of a permanent role in overseeing the strait isn't settled. The extent of any sanctions relief is up for debate and could snarl talks. Okay. If talks progress, the 1-month period could be extended by mutual agreement. Iran is reviewing the proposal, according to the Iranian Foreign Ministry. President Trump said he had agreed to pause the nascent U.S. effort to guide ships through the strait to give space for negotiations. U.S. officials said there were multiple documents with possible deals sent back and forth between Washington, Tehran, and facilitator capitals. Trump on Wednesday said the U.S. would return to bombing Iran if the Islamic Republic doesn't agree to a deal. So let me be frank here. This is all bad news. I've been saying for a long time, I've said it in recent videos, said it even before the war started, Iran's goal is to kick the can down the road, prolong, negotiate, keep it going. How much damage is done to them and to their people is not their primary concern. Their primary concern is survival. And it looks to me like this is the road to their survival. Now, I want to share with you 2 clips from a video put out by General Jack Keane. You probably know him from Fox News, or if you watch my channel, I've used a few clips of him. He's a regular contributor to Fox News. He is one of the most influential military analysts in America, and he also has close ties with President Trump. He's the chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. Now, he put out a 30-minute video about where we stand right now and what's going on. I'm not going to play the whole thing, obviously. He basically lays out the current situation. So let's get to the first clip of General Jack Keane right here.
When the destroyers weren't hurt in any way, the people weren't hurt, but they were firing at us, and we were firing back at them. And our firepower was a hell of a lot stronger than theirs, and they knocked the hell out of them.
All right, there you go. U.S. forces striking back in the Strait of Iran, straight at Iran after 3 of our Navy warships were targeted yesterday. Officials telling Fox the conflict is not a restart of the war and is not an end to the ceasefire. And Tehran is still reviewing the peace proposal as the Trump administration is reportedly looking to restart, quote, Project Freedom. Remember, we were going to get the Oman side of the strait, all while U.S. intelligence reportedly believes Iran could outlast the American blockade because they can sustain themselves for months, according to our CIA. Here to discuss this, retired 4-star general, Fox News senior strategic analyst, chairman of the Institute of Study of War, General Jack Keane. General, you're all for restarting Operation Freedom, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, let me just to draw back on where are we. I mean, give President Trump the credit for starting this operation after October the 7th, when the Israelis were obviously devastatingly attacked. It was a recognition that this region, it's got to change, and we're going to have to force that change, and Iran is behind everything that's happening there. And this president acted on that. Other presidents, admittedly, the threat wasn't quite as bad as it is now, but largely ignored. So that's number one. Number two, we went to a ceasefire about a month ago. From the Iranians' perspective, that's what they wanted to achieve. Stop the war. And we were supposed to get a negotiated deal in a couple of weeks. It did happen. They have purposely dragging this out. It's now been a month, and we still don't have much to show for it. I think the prospects of a good deal are likely slim. And even if we do get a deal, here's the problem with any deal that we make, assuming it meets all of our objectives. To get a deal, we will have to provide some funding for the Iranians, admittedly condition-based, and also sanction relief. So when you draw back from that, even after a negotiated settlement, what do we have? We have a regime that survives and also ability to recover. And I think that is fundamentally flawed. That's not where we started this operation to achieve. We want Iran back on its heels, suffering significantly and susceptible to resistance from their own people, internal pressure. So in my judgment, I think we got to see reality for what it is. We should go back and execute Project Freedom, take the Strait of Hormuz away from the Iranians, secure it and open it for navigation, and also at some point get some assistance in doing that. And then we have to unleash the Israelis. They have a very comprehensive bombing campaign that they're going to conduct that deals with leadership, it deals with energy, it deals with all the weapon systems we still have to go through. Remember, from the outset, we don't talk about it very much, but it is a fact. The Israelis have always had more air power in this fight than we've had, and they still have more in it right now. So what they can do comprehensively here in terms of air power is significant. Remember, when we went to the ceasefire, we only had 2 weeks left. That was a month ago. And the U.S. can do limited bombing. The Straits of Hormuz, it doesn't look like a complicated operation when you just draw it on a map and put a circle around it, because it's a relatively small geographic area. But the layered defense extends well into Iran at some distance to be able to protect the Straits of Hormuz. So there's huge resources tied up in that. So we would be able to do some selected bombing in support of returning to combat operations, while the main effort for the United States would be to open up the Straits of Hormuz. The Israelis would take up the majority of the bombing campaign to bring us to an endpoint that I think makes a lot more sense in terms of where we're heading now.
So the Saudis did not want us, according to the Wall Street Journal, did not let us use our own bases, either the Kuwaitis, during Operation Freedom. They were concerned that they were going to be targeted, like the UAE was targeted, and we wouldn't come to their defense. I'm really not sure why they would think that. And that was part of the pushback, and why they stopped it after 2 days. But the president says he's willing to put it into place. You also think we should use Karg Island as a point of leverage. You attack us, you lose the entire thing, all your oil-producing facilities.
Yeah, well, one of the concerns that people in the administration have, and it's a legitimate concern, is that Iran has already demonstrated, obviously, they have the capability to hit oil infrastructure and energy targets of our allies and partners in the region. They did it at Qatar and in natural gas, and they've also have done it with the UAE and Saudi Arabia. But we have an ace here up our sleeve, so to speak. It's Karg Island, and we're obviously blocking it now from any transport coming out of there, and that represents 90%, of their oil resources. So clearly the blockade over time will force an economic collapse. And I've said from the outset that they are willing to withstand economic peril and even suffering to their own people much more than what we look at through our values in terms of what's reasonable. Right. They are not reasonable. They don't care about their people. But we can hold Karg Island hostage. If you're going to attack Qatar's natural gas, or the Saudis or the UAE's oil fields, we're going to begin to take Karg Island away from you in terms of physical destruction. Right. And we communicate that to them very, very clearly, unequivocally, what the intent is here. Yes, we still hold all the cards, Brian.
Right. Just real quick, the Washington Post says 75% of the mobile launchers are in place and 75% of its missile stockpiles in place. That's contradictory of almost everything we've heard. Who's telling the truth here?
Yeah, that's not accurate. I don't know what the exact number, but 75% is way off the mark. Now, look they do have ballistic missiles deeply buried in the storage site. This was one of the reasons why the timing and urgency of this operation began, because after the 12-day war, what the Iranians recognize is how vulnerable their ballistic missiles are. So they began to put the majority of them on deeply buried storage facilities, and they got Chinese assistance in terms of the type of fuel and other things. They were putting that program on acceleration. Israel was getting more and more concerned about it, as were we. They get to the point where the numbers are so great that we would overwhelm the defenses of U.S. bases and also Israeli civilian population centers. That was a sense of urgency in moving forward. We can block the entrances to those storage sites. We can't eliminate because they're so deeply buried, but we can make it much more difficult to get that stuff out of there. What they have been doing is, obviously, during a month-long ceasefire, they're excavating and taking launchers out and also ballistic missiles out of there. We can go back in there and systematically deny them the use of those launchers and those missiles that are in those storage facilities. That is absolutely physically possible using air power.
All right, General Jack Keane, it's my message. I think the theme we're getting from you, they don't have the message yet. We got to go back. General Jack Keane, thanks so much. Meanwhile, straight ahead, have a great weekend.
So when you see this, when you see what Jack Keane is saying, I got to tell you, every word of it is accurate. We have a real problem here, and that is that President Trump is dead set on getting a deal, and he always talks about the deal. He wants to make a deal, and we're going to get a deal. We're going to bring them to the table, and they're going to sign a deal. Oh, and they're totally destroyed. Their military's gone. They have got nothing left. We've won this thing. It's a misunderstanding. It's a misread of the regime itself. And there's also, look, there's an American hesitation. There's a hesitation to go in on the ground. There's a hesitation to really see it through to the end. We've seen this problem ever since World War II, in a Western hesitation about driving towards full victory. Now, just in case you're thinking that, maybe things, maybe the regime is not interpreting things the way that Jack Keane is saying, let me show you this piece in WANA. So after I watched this Jack Keane clip, I went over to the Iranian state media outlet WANA, and the top story, the front page story on WANA today is, take a look at this. Top news: the attrition of American power in Hormuz, Washington caught in a trap of time. And it reads like what Jack Keane just said. And this is the Iranian regime. This is their press release, basically, from today. Amid tensions that seem to evolve into a new form every day, one reality stands out more than anything else. The United States still has not decided what kind of conflict it is truly trapped in. That is a really true statement. The Americans have not decided what they're actually doing here. Are you trying to simply bring the Iranian regime to its knees? Well, not fully to its knees, but to give in on the nuclear issue, to give in on Hormuz, and you're gonna have them sign some sort of deal and they remain in power? Are you out to change the regime? What exactly are you doing? The United States looks indecisive. If bombing alone could have changed the equation, Washington would never have abandoned it in favor of blockades and general pressure tactics. And if containment had proven effective, there would have been no need for limited and scattered confrontations in the Strait of Hormuz. The constant shift in strategy reflects less a sign of innovation than a picture of confusion and urgency from a power that increasingly sees time working against it. The United States can neither enter a full-scale war nor stabilize the current state of semi-suspension in its favor. As a result, it remains stuck somewhere between war and ceasefire. Stuck somewhere between war and ceasefire. Let me make this a little bigger for you. Sorry about that. Stuck somewhere between war and ceasefire. Unwilling to retreat far enough to acknowledge failure, yet unable to advance decisively enough to settle the battlefield. The outcome has been a series of limited and carefully controlled confrontations, tensions designed to generate pressure without escalating into total war. Yet even this prolonged state of uncertainty has gradually begun to work against Washington. To put it simply, the more things drag on, time is on the side of the Iranian regime. The Strait of Hormuz is no longer merely a maritime corridor. It has become a stage on which the credibility of American power is being tested. The world now watches daily to see whether the United States can still project the authority it once did. Every time tensions rise without producing any meaningful shift in the balance, the perception grows stronger in global public opinion that the era of uncontested American hegemony is nearing its end. Failure in such an arena is not merely a military setback. It represents the slow erosion of the prestige and deterrent image that for decades formed the backbone of Washington's foreign policy. Now, there's a lot of truth to this. There's a lot of truth to the fact that right now the Saudis and Emiratis and Kuwaitis, the Bahrainis, I mean, all the Gulf states there are looking at what America is doing and saying, like, wait a second, do you have the resolve to see this through? The Chinese are watching. Think about the Chinese designs on Taiwan, and they're looking at this American, when this thing started, it looked like, wow, America's willing to go there and they're going to take out the Iranian regime and solve this problem once and for all. And now it looks like they're hesitating. And it has reverberations across the globe. In this context, the passage of time has become the factor the United States fears most. Washington seeks rapid and decisive results because it understands that every day without a tangible achievement helps solidify a reality that previously did not exist. The inability to restore the Persian Gulf to its former order gradually reinforces the perception that America can no longer guarantee security, free passage, and unquestioned dominance in the way it once could. This has also deepened the economic and political dimensions of the crisis. Continued tensions in Hormuz have not only affected global energy markets and international trade, but have also created serious fractures between the United States and some of its allies. This is true. This is true regarding the Saudis, regarding the Emiratis. They were not happy with the way the United States is handling things. Many countries are no longer interested in prolonging confrontation. Instead, they're searching for ways to reduce tensions and reach accommodation. That's true of some of them. It's true of the Saudis. Knowing that the continuation of the situation could impose costs far beyond those of a regional crisis. On the other side, Iran, shaped by decades of sanctions and sustained pressure, views this war of attrition very differently from the United States. A country that has lived for years under economic and security restrictions now sees time not as a threat, but as part of its strategic leverage. Look at that. They don't see time as a threat. They see time as part of their strategic leverage. This is precisely why Washington's maximum pressure tactics no longer produce the effect they once did. The image of America in Tehran today is no longer that of an invincible power, but rather of a rival that, despite all its military and media capabilities, has struggled to achieve its objectives. Now, they're, of course, overstating this, but let's think about the impact on the Iranian people. Every article we read on WANA appears in Persian in Iranian state media. The Iranian people see this. And you know what? There's a lot of truth to what they're seeing. And they're wondering, like, wait a second. When this thing started, we were so hopeful. America's going to take down the regime. They're bombing them. This is great. And remember, the Iranian people wanted this bombing to happen. They wanted to resume. And now they're like, what's with all this hesitation? What's with all this dilly-dallying? And meanwhile, the regime is reinforcing itself. And as you saw Jack Keane mention in those clips, they're reinforcing themselves militarily. Washington's insistence on for this reason, the issue is no longer simply about the passage of several ships or even a specific political dispute. What is unfolding in Hormuz is a battle over the future of the region, a struggle in which the United States is attempting to prevent the consolidation of a growing perception that its influence in the Persian Gulf is in decline. That's quite an overstatement. Washington's insistence on returning military vessels to the region is therefore less an operational necessity than an effort to preserve the image of power that for years cast an uncontested shadow over the region's waterways. But the battlefield, contrary to America's wishes, has entered a phase of attrition. The longer the situation continues, the harder it will become to return to the past. The central question, here's the key, this is the punchline of the whole thing. The central question is no longer who struck first or which side issued the harsher threats. The real question is which power can endure time itself. And in this context, the signs increasingly suggest that time, more than anything else, is working against the United States. Folks, there's a lot of truth to what is written here. And, when you see Iranian state media giving its analysis of the situation, and it lines up with what General Jack Keane is saying, that there's a real problem here of the emboldening of the regime. And we go back to that Wall Street Journal piece that I started this with. We go back to that, and you see here, let me pull that up again. Look what it says there. Talks could resume next week in Pakistan. Iran's now willing to discuss things, but look at this. This is the worst piece. The U.S. would wind back its blockade of Iranian ports during the 30 days of talks. 30 days of talks. This is victory for Iran. Victory. That there's an agreement to start talking, and Trump, and notice what it said down here. President Trump said he agreed to pause the U.S. effort to guide ships through the strait to give space for negotiations. In other words, we're going to allow the Iranian rogue behavior in the Strait of Hormuz to continue. We are not going to bring in forces to escort ships through. We're not going to do all of that to open up the strait. We're not going to open up the strait to allow space for negotiations. This is the U.S. looking weak. This is the U.S. backing down. This is the Iranian regime saying, wait a second, our strategy is absolutely working. And we are in a very dangerous place. There has to be a reversal of course here. I pray that General Keene's warnings are heeded by the Trump administration in the days ahead. And please drop a comment. Let me know what you thought of this video and of all the other things we're doing on the channel. I take advice. I try to take as much advice as I can from the comments. I try to read as many of them as I can. And please make sure that you're subscribed to this channel and to Israel 365 News channel. It's there's a lot of important content that's going up there all the time. All right. God bless.